Hello. Welcome to the podcast, Human Rights in America, a Revolutionary Mindset. I am your host, Sue Young. Thank you for listening. And as always, like, share, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Remember the John Lennon song, Imagine? It talks about the world living in peace and joining the dreamers. Well, welcome to the revolution. You're in the right place. This week, I'm going to continue my discussion regarding DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And for some, they added B along for the ride. I've added the subtitle, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Really, just because I love that title. Remember the old Clint Eastwood Western of the same name? And secondly, because the big corporations remind me that we all play a part in the next phase of humanity. We are all reflections of the movie's theme that we are all capable of being the best and the worst for humanity, and often ride a fine line of moral ambiguity, a trait within us all. Each day we have to choose to show up and stand up for what we know to be right and just. Corporations like John Deere, Google, Lowe's, Harley Davidson, Meta, and Zoom all scaled back their DEI programs. Some companies have laid off DEI staffers and leaders of diverse employee resource groups, downsized learning and development programs, and cut budgets for external DEI groups by as much as, get this, 90% in 2023. The cuts come as the tech industry doubles down on artificial intelligence, which may lead to another problem, a lack of diversity input in AI. But that's another discussion for another time. Does that mean that they believe that America is in some post-racial era where there is no need for such programs? Or have these companies reached equity goals such that women and marginalized populations have equal access to the offered jobs, growth, pay, promotion within their companies? Or have they reached the end of the line with inclusion because all are welcomed in these companies? There is no further use for DEI. And finally, are these corporations no longer interested in their employees' need to belong to a corporation that cares about them personally, as opposed to being the number on a spreadsheet or a warm body to fill the queue? I think the answer to these questions is no. Unfortunately, this is only a guess because they have offered no rationale for their reason for withdrawing from their DEI programs. Remember, many companies jump on board the DEI support wagon after the national deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. But as I discussed in the last episode, the real start began much earlier. Banking corporations had race and sex discrimination suits that cost billions of dollars. Can you really just quit because the process is hard? Every day, we have to ask, who are the good, the bad, and the ugly? Why support corporations that seem to have given up on humanity while leaning into AI technology, where representation will still be needed in the pool of AI information? It reminds me of the time when everyone was against Obamacare. But in rejecting Obamacare, they offered no alternative plan. The same thing here. Why not work to redesign DEI programs rather than defund them? The numbers sum it up. Your organization will become less diverse, not more, if you mandate managers to go to diversity training, try to regulate their hiring and promotion decisions, and implement legalistic discipline or complaint systems that protect you legally but don't serve the people or the purpose the system was meant to address. So, how do we make DEI programs successful? In the same article from 2016, Why Diversity Programs Fail, by Frank Dobbin and Alexander Kalev, they opine that companies do a better job of increasing diversity when they forego the control tactics and frame their efforts more positively. The type of programs include voluntary training, self-managed teams, cross-training, college recruitment, mentoring, and diversity task forces. In addition to promoting accountability, they engage members who might previously been cool to the diversity projects because of the increased contact with women, minorities, and other white men who participate. On average, companies that put in voluntary diversity task forces see 9% to 30% increases in their representation of white women and minority groups in management over the next 5 years. College recruitment programs. College recruitment programs targeting women and minorities appear to work great when managers willingly participate in recruitment efforts when they're invited. The message positive. Help us find a greater variety of promising employees. Managers who make college visits are determined to come back with strong candidates from underrepresented groups. Basically, when asked to be part of the solution, managers become converts. Unfortunately, in the short 8 years since this article was published, the support for DEI is waning. Those same companies that once championed for accountability, like Google, are leading the news circuits with their decision to defund the DEI programs as much as 90%. And again, not offering alternative solutions. The bread and butter method might be voluntary training because it evokes the response, I choose to show up, so I must be pro-diversity, which leads to better results. When people feel pressure to agree with bias training, studies show that bias against Blacks increased. But when they felt the choice was theirs, the training reduced bias. Furthermore, it is more effective to engage managers in solving the problem rather than have executive committees dictate the top-down approach. Transparency in selection may be used to activate social accountability. Social accountability is when managers have to explain their decisions to promote and award raises to peers or higher management. As a result, managers may tend to focus on merit rather than relying on their bias for selections. Recently, some states have passed pay transparency laws. For instance, in Illinois, the new transparency law mandates that employers with 15 or more employees disclose the wage or salary range and a description of benefits and other compensation expected for the position. I briefly talked about this in an earlier episode, addressing the pay gap. The law only forces an employer to post pay range, but doesn't address the present pay gap, if any, between male and female or minority workers. Colorado led the charge in May of 2019, followed by Maryland, Connecticut, Nevada, Rhode Island, Washington, California, and New York State. Self-managed teams can potentially lead to greater diversity and inclusion within a workplace, and they often encourage a culture of collaboration. Everyone's voice is heard and valued regardless of background or identity, which can promote a more inclusive environment for diverse individuals to contribute effectively. Self-managed teams are a group of employees who work together without a traditional manager. Instead, take responsibility for their own work and the team's success. Self-managed teams have a lot of autonomy and discretion over how they work, including how they set goals, schedule work, and distribute tasks. That's important because if you work from home or take care of your family, you can work around those hours and they're not just strictly 9 to 5. Also, self-managed teams tend to be more creative and innovative because they have the freedom to experiment and to think outside the box. Employees can develop new skills, try out new roles, gain leadership skills, and become more motivated and more engaged as they feel empowered to do their best. Sure, there are disadvantages like lack of decision making, lack of direction, and toxic team dynamics. But even with manager led teams, intervention and direction from the top can help. Mentoring programs make companies' managerial echelons significantly more because they boost diversity groups within the company. White men tend to find mentors on their own. Women and minorities often need help from formal programs. One reason is that white male executives don't feel comfortable reaching out to white women and other minorities. Yet they may be eager to mentor proteges when assigned. Women and minorities are often the first to sign up for mentors. Let's look at Coca-Cola. In 2000, Coca-Cola was hit with a $193 million race discrimination lawsuit. With the guidance from the court-appointed external task force, executives in North America became interested in establishing mentors and mentees. After 5 years, 80% of all the mentees climbed at least one rung in management. Coca-Cola looks like a very different company. Targeted recruitment programs, mentoring programs, self-managed teams, and task force have all boosted diversity in businesses. Some of them are the most effective solutions to diversity without even being designed with diversity in mind. In an Economist article in August of 2022, the authors indicate that in America, courts will need to move first. Many employers may be motivated to institute diversity less by productivity or morality and more by legal liability. A study of federal civil rights opinions decided between 1965 and 2014 show that judges increasingly consider such practices as evidence of compliance with civil rights laws. If judges start paying more attention to which programs work, it may force firms to do the same. Diversity language in companies' policies can stress white men out. according to the University of Santa Barbara and the University of Washington. Researchers, about a third of the U.S. firms have self-managed teams for their core operations, so these tools are already in place in many organizations. The recent Supreme Court ruling on the affirmative action in college admissions has supported the backlash, or the white lash, which led to the elimination of some of the DEI programs. The ruling states that race-based affirmative action in college admissions is unconstitutional. This decision may have a legal impact on affirmative action hiring practices, though employers cannot lawfully discriminate against employees based on a protected status like race or sex. They may run into legal challenges if they use race-conscious policies like the universities. In closing, if America recognizes that there is systemic and institutional racism in this country against Blacks as a result of slavery and against women, for whatever reason, how can we legally set up policies that address this? I guess that's $1 million question. Our ability to reach unity and diversity will be the beauty and the test of our civilization. Mahatma Gandhi. Until next time, be revolutionary, be human.